King William IV reigned from 1830 to 1837. Known as the Sailor King due to his early naval career, William's reign came at a time of significant political and social change in Britain. Following the extravagant and politically conservative rule of his elder brother George IV, William's reign marked a transitional period in British history. It was a time when the power dynamics between the monarchy and Parliament began to shift, and the impact of industrialization, social reforms, and political movements, particularly the push for democratic representation, became more pronounced. His reign saw the passage of crucial reforms, most notably the Reform Act of 1832, which significantly changed the electoral landscape of Britain. It was also a time when the monarchy began to evolve from its previously more political role toward a more symbolic and ceremonial function. William was not only a king who presided over a changing Britain, but also a monarch whose personal life and experiences left an indelible mark on the history of the United Kingdom. William was born on August 21st, 1765, as the third son of King George III and Queen Charlotte. He was not initially expected to become king, as his older brothers, George and Frederick, Duke of York, were the presumptive heirs. However, both of these brothers had no legitimate children, and William's ascension to the throne in 1830 was made possible by the deaths of his elder siblings. As a child, William was noted for his more unremarkable position within the royal family. He was known to be practical, and his personality was often considered more down-to-earth compared to the lavishly indulgent George. From a young age, William was sent to serve in the Royal Navy, where he was determined to make his mark and escape the stiff protocols of royal life. His naval career, beginning in 1779, was one of the defining aspects of his early life, and he spent much of his youth at sea, rising through the ranks. During his naval service, William proved to be a competent officer. He served in the West Indies and the Mediterranean, and participated in various military actions, including the American Revolution. His military experience was essential to his later reputation as the Sailor King, though he would never achieve the highest ranks of the Navy. Nonetheless, he developed a genuine appreciation for life on the sea, and his military service marked him as more grounded and capable than his royal siblings. Despite his relatively modest position in the royal line of succession, William maintained an affinity for the Navy and for the common people of Britain, a sentiment that would influence his reign as king. His upbringing as a sailor stood in stark contrast to the more ceremonial lives of his older brothers, and it helped shape his image as a man of action rather than luxury. William ascended to the throne on June 26, 1830, after the death of his brother. George's reign had been characterized by excess, political conservatism, and a strained relationship with the British people, which made William's ascension somewhat of a relief for the nation. William, though still an aristocrat by birth, was viewed as a more approachable and down-to-earth figure, in stark contrast to the extravagant image of his brother. Although William was not expected to be king, his personality and lifestyle won him considerable popular support after his coronation. His reign was seen as a break from the past, largely due to his more relatable persona and his association with the Navy. However, despite his popularity with the people, he faced serious challenges, including the volatile political climate and an increasingly assertive parliament. William's reign occurred during a period of significant political upheaval in Britain. The country was in the midst of industrialization, and social and economic inequalities were becoming more apparent. The political landscape was increasingly defined by the growing power of Parliament, which was becoming more assertive in challenging royal authority. One of the most significant political movements of this time was the push for electoral reform. The early 19th century saw a growing discontent with the existing system of parliamentary representation, which was seen as outdated and unrepresentative of the changing social and economic conditions in Britain. Many areas of the country, particularly the rapidly growing industrial towns, were underrepresented in Parliament, while older, more rural constituencies had disproportionate representation. This issue came to a head in 1830, when a wave of political unrest swept through the country. The Whigs, the political party advocating for reform, gained power in Parliament and began pushing for changes to the electoral system. This culminated in the Reform Act of 1832, which significantly reformed parliamentary representation. The Reform Act of 1832 was arguably the defining piece of legislation during William's reign. The Act was a direct response to the widespread demand for political reform, as well as growing concerns about the corrupt and antiquated electoral system. The Reform Act introduced several important changes. First, it abolished the so-called rotten boroughs, constituencies that had very few voters but still sent MPs to Parliament. These boroughs were often controlled by wealthy landowners and were considered a major source of political corruption. The Act also expanded the electorate by granting the vote to more middle-class men who met property qualifications. In total, it increased the number of men eligible to vote by around 50%. Despite his personal hesitations, William ultimately supported the Reform Act, albeit reluctantly. The King's role in the passage of the Act is seen as crucial. Although William had a conservative instinct and was initially opposed to extensive reforms, he recognized that the demand for change could no longer be ignored. When opposition in Parliament threatened to block the bill, William reluctantly agreed to dissolve Parliament in 1831, leading to a general election that resulted in a decisive victory for the reformist Whigs. This was followed by the passing of the Reform Act in 1832. While the Reform Act did not democratize the British political system fully, it represented a significant step toward a more representative government. The Act allowed for the expansion of political participation to a wider segment of society and marked the beginning of a series of reforms that would continue throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. Known for his bluntness, honesty, and simplicity, William was not inclined toward the lavishness and formality that characterized the reign of his predecessors. He was highly regarded for his integrity, and his straightforward approach to both domestic and political affairs earned him admiration from the British public. William was also known for his temper and stubbornness. He frequently clashed with politicians and was not always able to navigate the complexities of political life. His directness, while endearing to many, sometimes made it difficult for him to manage the factions within Parliament, especially in the later years of his reign. William was also somewhat overshadowed by the political figures around him, particularly the Prime Minister, the Duke of Wellington, and later Charles Grey. Though he played a key role in the passage of the Reform Act of 1832, his role in other areas of government was often less hands-on. Nonetheless, his reign marked a pivotal moment in the transition of the British monarchy from an institution with significant political power to one that was more symbolic and ceremonial. While William's reign was relatively short, it marked the beginning of a clear decline in the political power of the monarchy. The king's own personal involvement in politics was largely reactive, and his authority was increasingly constrained by the power of Parliament. The changes brought about by the Reform Act of 1832 were just the beginning of a process that would continue throughout the 19th century, further limiting the role of the monarchy. As the role of Parliament grew more central in British governance, the monarchy, under William and his successors, began to assume a more ceremonial and symbolic function. While George III had been deeply involved in the political workings of his time, and George IV had been an active, if sometimes controversial, figure in British politics, William's reign saw the monarchy begin its transition into the more modern role it holds today. King William died on June 20th, 1837, at the age of 71, after a reign of just 7 years. He was succeeded by his niece, Queen Victoria, who would go on to preside over a period of great change in Britain.